Good morning, everyone, and welcome once again to the Shaping Sustainability series. My name is Alex Glod, and we are continuing our conversation on how we can shape sustainable cities together. This is a partnership that we have with the Netherlands Embassy here in Bucharest, and our main goal is to share good case practices on how we can reshape our cities, how we can give them a new edge, and make sure that they are a reflection of the vision and the world we want to live in. Today, we're going to talk about innovative cities. This will be our main flagship conversation. And for this, I have a guest that will talk very much from a perspective of a project that is happening in the Netherlands, which I believe can inspire many cities like Bucharest, Timișoara, Cluj, Sibiu, and much more. Because we're not going to talk just about how to innovate inside the city, but how a city becomes a leader for its region, for its metropolitan area, and all of the areas surrounding it, so that all of these resources are used properly and there is a spearheaded innovation for the future. So allow me to present, first of all, my guest. His name is Wim De Kinderen. He is, since 2009, working with Brainport Eindhoven EU Office in Brussels, representing the City of Eindhoven, Brainport Development, and other economic stakeholders towards fellow regions and the European institutions. In his role, he is responsible for policy lobbying, network communication, and project development. And within Brainport Development, he's part of the strategy team. Now, when you think of Brainport, maybe the name doesn't tell you much. So I would love to take this opportunity to show you a short video that presents the concept. And afterwards, we're going to get into more detail with Wim about it. All right, just a moment so I can properly tune in. And here we go.
Come here to learn, because that's the best thing you can do.
It's just the center where things happen.
The Silicon Valley for you, and human Silicon Valley.
It was an eye-opening and really a mind-blowing experience.
Disney does not have what you have.
Awesome. So this has been a bit of an introduction into Brainport and what it does, but I would love to give our guest Wim the opportunity to share in his own words what is exactly Brainport, how it came to be, and also how he became part of this story. Wim?
Yes, hi Alex. Good morning, everybody. Nice to be here, and thanks a lot for the invitation to be sharing our story with you, because I think indeed it's not only a nice way for us to promote maybe the region, and as you've noticed, my colleagues like the bombastic music a little bit, but I think the content behind is quite fascinating. And then, as you said, the Brainport name is interesting, especially because English native speakers really think it's a ridiculous name, and they don't understand, but everybody else, in my experience, and I'm working now for the organization since a bit more than 10 years, based in the Brussels-based European office. So Brainport is really referring to the fact that we are a knowledge-intensive manufacturing industries. In the Netherlands has a policy of main ports, like really spots in the country, and traditionally this has always been the Rotterdam area with the port, of course, Amsterdam as a capital obviously, but also the financial centrum. And then there was Brainport as a manufacturing region, but not just a traditional manufacturing region, but very much an innovative manufacturing region. That's where the brains find their origin in the name giving. Maybe a word about myself. I'm not Dutch to start with. That's always important to say. And it also allows me, I think, and my colleagues have to keep on having a bit of an outside look at what we're doing, which is always important. To be, to keep on being a bit critical to yourself and be able to look at yourself with the eyes of somebody else. Long time ago, I studied international politics and European politics. So what I'm doing today is pretty much what I studied for at the beginning. But my first job, I was working for the operational program for the Objective 2 region Kempen, which is part of the province of Antwerp in Belgium. So that was a reconversion region, heavily touched by industrial decline, and we got European funding to be able to reinvent the region, basically. And I was responsible for the European Social Fund part. So I was basically selling subsidies for training to companies and NGOs. First jobs are always a little bit of a coincidence sometimes, but basically it defined my career, because with one step aside, I've actually always been involved in regional economic development. Also, my previous job before this, I was the coordinator of a collaboration platform between employers' organizations, trade unions, local authorities, and the provincial authorities for all things related to educational policy, labor market policy, and sub-regional economic policy. Starting up projects to develop that particular part in Belgium, which is actually the neighboring region of Eindhoven. And that's how I got in touch with the Brainport organization when we were writing our new economical strategy. So we got in touch. I started following them because I think even if they were so close, they were also totally different, much more ambitious, much more outward looking, much more international. So it caught my attention. And when there was a job opportunity, also after having served plus 4 years in this Belgian organization, I thought the time for a new challenge was there. I applied, and at the end, I got the job, which I'm still very happy with. So why was I so interested in this Brainport region and organization? As it was mentioned in the video, it's all about collaboration, basically. Long-time servants in the Brainport region will always tell you about the crisis in the early 90s, which seems a long time ago, but it's really still relevant and important because the history of Eindhoven is innovation. Philips was mentioned, and the city of Eindhoven is the birthplace of Philips. Used to be a lighting company, it's not anymore. It's a medical company these days. And it's almost fair to say that Eindhoven was for a long time a textbook example of a one-company town, as you've had many in Europe, of course, but so were we. Of course, we've had other companies, but Philips was very much defining. And then there was the crisis, the DAF company, which was a car building company. Now they produce trucks. They went broke. Philips had a worldwide restructuring operation, but with huge effects in the Eindhoven region. So basically, within a time of less than 2 years, 1/3 of the working population lost its job. So that was a big issue in the region, of course. And that was the moment when the mayor of Eindhoven, the rector of the university, and the president of the Chamber of Commerce got together to say, okay, we've got to fix this problem, but especially we've got to prevent this from happening again. I mean, it will happen again. Economy goes with ups and downs, that's logical, but if it happens, we have to make sure that the consequences are less devastating as they are now being the early 90s. And that was the start of the famous triple helix collaboration. Today, everybody is in the quadruple helix collaboration involving end users, of course, with the triple helix between industry, public authorities, and knowledge institutes, the university, and the other schools. That was the start of an intense collaboration, and it was a result of a culture which was already there, of course, because the trust and the collaboration is not something you build because you want it to happen. It doesn't happen automatically. There was a fertile ground, but there was an accelerator event to make that happen. So the Brainport Foundation was founded then pretty soon afterwards. This is the foundation which designs the Regional Economic Innovation Strategy, which is then being implemented by a large number of standing organizations, of course. And the foundation then started with its own executive agency, which has had a few names, but today it's called Brainport Development. So basically, Brainport Development does all the things which are not taken up spontaneously by other organizations in the region because it's not part of their regular portfolio. So more I would say the collective efforts, the more complicated efforts, maybe the ones that deserve a bit of facilitation work in getting organizations together. That's what we do, which also includes the lobby work towards the Dutch government. So we used to have an own office in The Hague. We don't have that anymore, but we do have two people really working specifically on the relationships with the ministries and the government. And then there's the Eindhoven Brussels office with me and other two colleagues. So we have 3 people in Brussels, 2 funded by the City of Eindhoven and 1 by Brainport, which is already a nice sign of this collaboration between the city and the region, as you said in your introduction, Alex, where the city, which is like 1/3 of the population of the region, is really taking its responsibility to build the region, because they know that a strong region is good for the city and a strong city is good for the region. So it works in both directions. The mayor of Eindhoven is also the president of the Brainport Foundation by definition. So that's the very intense link we have between the two levels there.
Mm-hmm, indeed, and I think Brainport is a great example, and the story is very useful for many cities here in Romania that also in the 90s, either you could see that they were developed during the communist times around one industry, and they failed, and because of that, a lot of young people had to leave, and there was a drainage of human resource, as well as the fact that right now there is a conversation about metropolitan strategies that, all right, we elect people to take care of our cities, but we need to find a way for these regions to collaborate more effectively. And it's interesting how it came from a period of crisis. I can quote, the people from the guys from Red Hot Chili Peppers: "Destruction always breeds creation." So to a certain extent, moments like these, and if we think of what we're going through right now, it is a great time for our cities to innovate. I was wondering if you can tell us a bit more, give us some examples of how some of the projects that have taken place inside the Brainport region, so that people can get a glimpse of what has happened since the 90s when this project started?
Sure. Yeah, very good question, because it's very easy to speak about trust and collaboration, but it's quite abstract and it risks staying a bit theoretical. And we're very cluster building, strengthening the innovation ecosystem. I mean, everybody reading a European article these days, you're killed by those words, and you will continue to be killed by them, which is a good thing, by the way. We are strongly in favor of these new policy initiatives. But I think when we're talking, I'll give you 2 examples on the regional level. The first is really on this manufacturing topic. Maybe you can share the screen. We have launched last year the Brainport Industries Campus, which is a new manufacturing place, a building. And it's actually the result of a nice program we started almost 10 years ago, which is Brainport Industries itself. Brainport Industries is a cooperative of the high-tech supplying companies to the large OEM companies in the region. It's, in the meantime, an organization which is operating nationally. There are even some German and Belgian members, but the large majority of the members are Eindhoven based, because it's interesting that we have a few of those large OEM companies who are really world players, global players. But if you look at who are their main suppliers, the large majority, and I'm talking about plus 70%, is based within a short radius around the city of Eindhoven. So we have brought those companies together to intensify the collaboration. On the one hand, to make them better, even better connected to the large OEM companies who are their final clients, but also to strengthen the collaboration in between themselves, independently of these large OEM players such as Philips and ASML and NXP, for example, to strengthen them. And then again, in the case that something might go wrong with those large corporates, that they would still have other contracts which would have a less negative effect on their turnover, employment rate, etc., etc. So that works pretty well, I have to say. And from the start, but that takes a while, they were thinking about a landing place. These companies are located in the region but dispersed. But now, since last year, they have a common landing place, which is the Brainport Industries campus. That's the building you see. This is not a picture. This is not a drawing. It's a real picture, live. It's a 60,000 square meter building, which is actually the first of 10 of these plants, where manufacturing companies can rent space. But the building is designed as such that collaboration is stimulated and made possible by flexible walls, for example. So really to that level of collaboration. The campus also has its own innovation program with a number of action lines, including what we call the Smart Industry Field Labs, so places where the companies who are located on the campus, but also outside, also international companies, by the way, to test and validate their new product developments. This is also supposed to be the spatial core place of our future European Digital Innovation Hub, for which we are applying, just like many other people. And on top of that, there's a school in the basement. So we have plus 1,000 students, high school students, technical students, who are working in the basement of that building, which is giving them close relationships with the companies, allowing them to work on the newest machines. So it's really an integrated place for the manufacturing industries of the future, basically.
I think that video, sorry to interrupt, in the video there was this idea that this is a human Silicon Valley, that on one side you work on developing technologies, but at the same time the purpose is also to build a human resource that can take it even further. Yeah, true. And also talking about that, we're very much a business to business region. So many of our companies don't ring such a large bell in the general audience because they don't produce products which you have in your house, apart from Philips maybe. But of course, the whole issue of societal challenges is not leaving us untouched. So, I mean, we do work on that more specifically now than we used to do in the past, on topics as energy, mobility, health, etc. And this human aspect is also, I mean, it's maybe not totally a response to your question, but very interesting, I think, definitely also for the audience here. Apart from the technology development, the issue of talent is basically the biggest issue in our region as well, everywhere, but also in our region. I mean, the topic of technically schooled workers from all levels is really the biggest issue our companies are dealing with. So, for example, we start with what we call the Brainport schools. It's a continuous, an educational line starting at primary school to introduce students, young children with technology. And it's working quite well, actually. A nice example of a human approach to technology is the fact that our university, it's already more than 5 years ago, but they also started promoting their
their education in more in the way of how does this contribute to societal challenges. And the result was that much more girls were subscribing to the university because they really had the traditional effect that technology was almost equal to boys, and it's no longer the case. So that's a real positive development that we are experiencing. A second example, maybe more on a smart city topic, is the Brainport Smart District. I think I also shared that link with you, so you can show it. The Brainport Smart District is a new greenfield development. It's going to be a new housing district in between the city of Eindhoven and Helmond, which is a neighboring city and the second city in the region. A housing district, but co-designed by the future residents. And interesting also here, really intending to be a field lab for new smart city developments. So there's the office managing the development of this district has its own innovation program with 8 specific innovation lines, which go from IT, energy, water, like 8 of these. And they have their own innovation program, including project calls towards companies, but also student teams, including a funding to start new projects on the field, so that the Brainport Smart District really serves as a testing ground for these developments and projects that touch upon, I think it's at least 3 of these 8 topics, they are eligible for funding. So a pure IT project would not be eligible, but an IT project, a water-based project, including IT components, and then still having a look at another topic that could be eligible for funding. So we have a few nice first generation of projects going on there, and you can read all about it on the Brainport Smart District.nl website, which also has an English version.
Yeah, and this is quite interesting that here it's quite in let's say citizen centered approach, that the development of the region also very much implies everyone in that community rather than a top-down perspective of here's our vision, deal with it, accept it. Here it's more of what is your vision and how can we build it around your ideas and your values.
Yeah, definitely. This is a clear example of a living lab, of course. I think as a region, and especially the city of Eindhoven actually has large experience in living labs. We're also quite active in the European network of living labs, where we share this expertise, really indeed involving citizens in these developments. This is a housing district, but we also in the city center, we since 6-7 years, we have a living lab on safety and security, which is quite relevant, of course, to people living in the inner city. We have quite some living labs on lighting in the urban context, smart lighting in this case, so IoT devices, etc. So those are things which maybe in the past would have been technology push initiatives like 10-15 years ago, but we're trying to turn that around into more relevant developments for our city and especially the people living there.
Indeed. I think most of the reason why we do these events is, like I said, to garner this collaboration also cross borders, because we believe there's a lot of potential in bringing different cultures, different ideas together. And there is a level of enthusiasm now. 2020, for one side, was a challenging year, but it also made a lot of people question, well, are we happy with the way cities work and all of these regions? So a lot of people are now interested in, pushing things in a different direction. What advice would you give to the regions, and what options are there for them to collaborate structurally to develop their region and to create projects such as these ones?
Yeah, I think 2 things. First of all, I would say don't jump on the latest hype. If you don't have any link with it, it might not be the best option to jump on it. Stay close to your core strength and your legacy, and from that you can go far. But I think that's important. It's of in European policy terms, it's of course the magical word of smart specialization, but it's really building on your strength and then seeing where future applications with huge potential, also market potential, are. A nice example, we are focusing as a region a lot on photonics these days, so lighting-based computer chips. And last year I was in one of our production companies on photonics, smart photonics they are called, and with some people from the European Commission as well, and they were actually telling us that the core technology on which their company is based goes back to technology which has been built by Philips 30 years ago. So this is incredible. These are things, of course, we're talking about about a time when companies like Philips still perform basic research themselves. They do that to a much lesser extent these days, but this is technology that was not used or not used in that way, which is now, after 3 decades, starting to be at the basis of real business, which is going to be a huge thing because photonics-based chips are able to save a lot of energy, for example. So stay close to your own strength and then start looking for those partners which complement your own expertise, of course. And if that is not based within your own region or within your own country, in your case, Romania, there are, of course, interesting networks on all topics to do that. And on the manufacturing issue again, we are very much involved as the Eindhoven region in the Vanguard Initiative, which is also a link I shared with you, which is a rather young initiative, started 5-6 years ago, initiated by Flanders, Belgium, which is a group of regions who are collaborating on industrial innovation. It's an open initiative, so we are 37 now, but any region which has a strong manufacturing or industry base, I would say, and has ambition and capacity to invest in innovation in manufacturing and industry, is more than welcome to have a talk with the association to see if membership is an option. And the good thing, I think the interesting thing is it's not just a network which also does lobbying towards the European Commission. The initiative also has a number of large-scale demonstration projects itself. We have 5 of them now, and I'm personally co-leading the one on 3D printing, for example, where we are together with a selection of these regions working on new developments in 3D printing, all from the ambition to be globally leading in this topic, but knowing that individual regions on themselves are not strong enough because they don't bring together all the expertise and capacity needed to do that on themselves. So we need to find those collaborations, not on an ad hoc basis, but really in structural collaborations such as these. I think you're still muted, Alex.
Yes, I was curious in terms of partnership. If let's say a city or region would love to come to you and say, okay, we'd like to work together, what are you usually looking into, or what is the most viable candidate for joining the Vanguard Initiative?
It's in this case, in the case of Vanguard, it's really the capacity to be able to mobilize your stakeholders. It's not enough to the daily work is to a large extent done by the people working in the Brussels offices of those regions, because it's allowing to take steps really quick and to see. I mean, now today it's a bit more difficult, but this network in Brussels is very worthwhile. But the real work, these projects which I explained, are being done in the region. So there are 2 things which are very important. On the one hand, the people in the field, and in this case, organizations like regional development agencies, innovation agencies, clusters are very important as go-betweens. And then the second, the link with the regional authority is important because we are really trying to build and finance projects with public money and private money. And on the public side, it's the combination of the European funds and the own regional funds is important. So the buy-in from the political level from the start is important, because the regions need to know what's happening by their stakeholders in the Vanguard Initiative, because at a certain moment there may be a question coming up to the region to fund a project in which companies are involved, or an investment in an innovation building, or one of those field hubs, for example. And if the region at that moment only discovers that its own people are basically working on that, it's too late. So the capacity and the ability to organize your stakeholders in the region and reach out to companies, that's important. And then the buy-in from the political level, also in terms of future funding.
Indeed. I think it is quite ambitious for example, like you said, in Eindhoven, you had this history and this culture of collaboration. It's going to be quite difficult for areas that up until now have been to a certain extent disconnected. I was wondering, from what I saw on the Vanguard Initiative, there were some initiatives from Eastern Europe. So we have Poland, we had Slovenia. Have you had any contact with them? Can you give us some insights on what have they been working on, or how your relationship with them has been?
Yes, Małopolska region in Poland is quite active in our bioeconomy pilot. They also proposed an own project there, so that's a nice example of initiative and leadership there. And from the Slovenian side, Slovenia is very active actually in the 3D printing case that I'm dealing with, but also other manufacturing issues. And there we see really a strong support by the government, because in this case it's the Slovenian government, national government, which is the partner. But then clusters, PECOS is one that I work with quite a lot. I don't know if they ring a bell in Romania, but they're very active and agile to work with, both on our sides in the networking part, but also really reaching out to their members. So yeah.
And it's interesting, like the projects that what I saw there. So there's a lot on, like you said, biotechnology and 3D printing. What other domains are of interest, and what potential do you see in terms of how regions can take leadership in certain areas where for now we still have a lot to work in, but have a great deal of potential?
Yeah, so we have 5 of those projects today, and the interesting issue is that actually for the first time we now have an open call to propose new topics. So this is open to all actually, and in particular to the own Vanguard regions, of course, but also to existing smart specialization partnerships. I don't have the number here, but there are quite a few Romanian organizations involved in those smart specialization partnerships. They are invited to propose by 1st of December a topic, which will then be selected, and we might be able to fund up to 2 of those new pilot projects, as we call them. So anything, industrial innovation is a large topic. You can think of well, if I'm looking at the smart specialization partnerships in which we are involved, which are not part of Vanguard, there is 5G, for example. There is artificial intelligence. There is photonics, as I mentioned. Those are topics that I can imagine finding a place within Vanguard in the future. But smart mobility, definitely medical technologies. Those are topics that I would see very logical to be landing there one day. Yeah.
And at the end of the day, it's up to the regions themselves, like you said, based on their own legacy, based on what history they have. They can build upon that in order to choose what is their particular niche and then move forward. And I believe that's a case for optimism, because while some cities in Romania, especially smaller cities, have kind of lost their edge comparing to, say, the 70s or 80s, that history still is valuable, because at the end of the day, having access to that technology gives you an insider perspective that a city that would have to start from scratch would not have at all. And like you said, even if that technology is 30 years old, that doesn't mean it cannot still be useful, because it very much depends on how you manage to make those connections and connect it to the current issues that we are facing today.
True. Indeed.
Well, I hope that this conversation and your projects have kind of spearheaded some ideas for the people watching. And so for the people that have tuned in, and if you have been inspired by what we've shown for you today, please check out Brainport Eindhoven. Check out the Brainport Industries Campus.com. I will leave us a few links in the comments so that you can check them out yourself. The Brainport Smart District, as well as the Vanguard Initiative. Each of these initiatives are here to give you the inspiration and the resources necessary to start these type of initiatives in your cities. And hopefully we'll see many good case practices in the following years. But one last message that I would hope you could leave us with, Wim, for the cities that would want, or the people that would want to engage in these in such an initiative, or to try to wake up their city and their region. Besides these two valuable advices that you gave us, to trust on your legacy and to not fall for the latest hype, and the trust and collaboration, what final thoughts would you leave them with if they would want to embark on this journey?
It's an obvious question. It's an easy one and a difficult at the same time. I think I will be repeating myself. Focus is very important. It's in the same genre as trust and collaboration, but the long-term vision is important. The focus is important. For example, I'll give you a corona-related testimony. When COVID popped up early this spring, we were in the process of writing our new multi-annual strategy. And the Brainport Foundation boards quickly concluded, actually, this is not going to influence our agenda. It will only force us and stimulate us to put even a bigger focus on everything digital. But all other issues related to our technology development, the areas in which we see a large potential, and in our case, that's very much key enabling technologies such as photonics and artificial intelligence, those are not influenced by it, because we know we have a potential there. There's a lot of work to be done, also to get the research to the company level, but that's it's not bringing us from our path. That's
Indeed, I think it's
and at the same time embrace. I'm personally very, very engaged in that as well. And actually, I have some colleagues from. I'm not too much aware of all the details in Romanian developments, but I have some few contacts in Cluj, for example. Embrace relevant new developments like this shift from a triple helix to the quadruple helix, even in our region, which, as I said, is a technology-based region. Business to business, even in these situations, this collaboration with end users is really of big value for your industrial developments as well. So those are new developments to be embraced, I think.
Indeed. Thank you so much, Wim, for spending your time with us here today and for sharing your knowledge, your experience, and these wonderful projects. I hope that the people tuning in have found a great deal of value. We're going to have more follow-ups on the website following our discussion. So you're going to have the chance to pass this on later on in a different format to people that could make some important decisions and use this as an inspiration. We're going to tune in again next week. We're going to have some surprises. So we're not going to spoil the last two guests and the last two editions of our podcast. We're going to have some special guests. But we invite you to keep following UrbanizeHub Romania. A big thanks to the Dutch Embassy in Romania for supporting this initiative. And once again, please check out Brainport and check out all of their projects and the Vanguard Initiative. And Wim, hope this won't be the last time we get to be in touch. And whenever we get to organize our usual urban talks face-to-face here in Bucharest, we would love to have you one day as our guest.
Happy to do so. Thanks, Alex.
It was a pleasure. Everyone, thank you. Have a good day and see you next time.
Thank you. Bye-bye.